Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Independent agencies are often small, but they can have a large impact on regulations in a lot of fields: finance, trade, communications. Many of them were the first ones subject to budget and staffing cuts by the Trump White House and its Department of Government Efficiency. For some analysis, Federal News Network's Eric White spoke with the director of the University of Maryland's Program for Public Consultation, Steve Cull.
Well, we were trying to find out more about how Americans feel about some of the changes that the Trump administration is instituting within the federal government, related particularly to independent agencies, whether Americans want those independent agencies to remain independent or to go under the control of the president, so that the president can hire and fire the leaders, can change decisions and overrule decisions and so on, which is not now the case. And we also explored other issues related to whether the president should be able to block or impound funds that have been legislated by Congress, and also whether there should be a new class of civil servants so that the president can basically have more political appointees.
And what was it that you found all across the spectrum? You know, there are obviously going to be changes of how different people view those ideas, but what was the main consensus that you took away from this?
Well, we can go into more of the specifics, but essentially for all of these proposals, and they come out to almost about 10 key choices, majorities opposed this transfer of power toward the president and away from Congress. And this was bipartisan in many cases, but in some cases the Republicans favored it. I can give you more of the specifics.
Yeah, go ahead. Lay out. So, proposals of keeping agencies independent, forcing presidents to actually spend the money that Congress gives them for said agencies, blocking that spending. What were some of the numbers that you can give us?
Okay, well, first looking at the independent agencies, we explained how they work and how they're structured and so on. And then we gave them arguments pro and con for whether they should be independent. So basically, in every case, about 2/3 opposed putting them under the direct control of the president. And that included the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, the Security and Exchange Commission, the National Labor Relations Board, the regulatory functions of the Federal Reserve, the Federal Elections Commission, and the Office of Special Counsel. And this was bipartisan. In every case except for the Federal Trade Commission, Republicans were divided on whether that should be independent or not.
We're speaking with Stephen Cull. He is the director of the University of Maryland's Program for Public Consultation. And so let's go for some analysis and possibly some speculation here, Stephen. Is the timing having an effect, do you think, of who the current president is and what party that person particularly belongs to? Do you think that you could maybe see some changing waves in being more in favor for a president that you more ideologically identify with having this power rather than the other person? I'm curious if you've done anything like this in the past when a different president with a different letter next to their name has been in power.
Right. I mean, it's like in the Senate about the filibuster when your party has the majority, this looks really attractive to get rid of the filibuster, and then it doesn't look so attractive later. There is some pattern of Republicans being more favorable to a stronger president. But what was key in the way we did this, and of course, President Trump is Republican, but the way we did this, we explained the issue, and we presented them arguments pro and con for whether these agencies should be independent. And one of the arguments that we presented them against it is we said, well, think about your least favorite president, Democrat or Republican, having complete control over all these agencies that deal with the stock market and workers' rights and elections and so on. And that was a very persuasive argument. On the other hand, arguments that, there are all these unelected bureaucrats that are not accountable to the people, they get in the way of the president's agenda, and they just kind of clog things up, the deep state type of thing. And those also were found convincing by majorities, but the arguments against also there was concerns that presidents are more subject to the influence of money, of campaign donors. They can affect presidents, but the heads of these agencies are more independent and not affected by these political processes. So it's like people went, on the other hand, yeah, but in the end, 2/3 came down consistently in favor of keeping the independence of the commissions.
This particular analysis had a pretty large representative sample size, almost 1,250 people. I'm curious, though, to get your idea. With these participants, President Trump had created a wave of interest from what we consider outsiders or folks that feel that the political system is, just 100% blanket corrupt. Participating in a political poll like this, did you all factor in the idea that even knowing who you all are and actually participating in a poll such as this may be that they consider the political process still rescuable, where a good portion of the president's supporters, I would say, feel that there should be no, independent agency, so to speak. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
Well, there is a lot of frustration with the federal government, and that's bipartisan. President Trump spoke to that very effectively when he was running. He just said, basically, you think government's for sale, that you can buy politicians. Well, you're right. I know. I've been doing it for years. But I'm so rich, nobody can buy me, so you can trust me. So that was sort of his central to his theme, to his appeal. And Americans, and this is bipartisan, this frustration, the perception that special interests dominate and so on. And so these arguments that pointed to the potential influence of that really made a difference. And their independence from those special interests was attractive. Broadly, are we talking about, are people looking for some kind of revolution? No, I would not. I would say they are not. But something attractive about President Trump is that he is perceived as kind of independent of the system that's been in place for some time. Doesn't mean that they agree with everything that he's trying to do, but that is something about him that people do find attractive.
Let's just hone in on the workforce part of this, just because that's probably most interest to our audience. The concept of the civil servant is, the PR. If it had a PR agency, I would probably fire it, just because, as you mentioned, President Trump ran a lot on the idea of the federal government being run by a lot of unaccountable bureaucrats. Democrats are obviously pushing back against that, saying that these are folks that have a duty to serve. And now the idea of even being a federal employee has become politicized. Who should be in charge of that? Should we go back to the spoil system, if I can put on my political scientist hat? Is there a system that people may be a little bit more in tune with rather than what is going on right now? Or is it just going to really depend on who's in office at that time, how the federal workforce is going to be treated, you think?
Well, this is another situation where people show ambivalence, and when we gave them the argument that there are too many unelected bureaucrats, that they block the president's agenda and presidents in general, not just this one, that got a solid majority saying they found that convincing. But on the other side, the argument that it's better to have professionals in place and not political, party loyalists or party hacks. There's too much potential for corruption there and so on. That argument did better. And in the end, 55% opposed the idea of creating a new class of civil servants that would change out some of the current ones that could be hired without the standard competitive process and could be more easily fired, and thus could be more attentive or responsive to the president and his policy agenda. And it was underscored that these were people in in policy-related positions.
Stephen Cull, director of the University of Maryland's Program for Public Consultation, speaking with Federal News Network's Eric White. We'll post this interview along with a link to the poll at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.